Yeah, maybe we should do that,
If
give
it's
you
not
a
alone.
follow-up 5-hour energy at 4:08. But on a serious note, you know, as long as our meeting is productive, because there are things that have to happen. I mean, we have to make decisions and, you know, some people get kind of long-winded in deciding what the decision gonna be, but yeah, I'm okay with that. Because that will be once in a while.
Well, I'm hearing to maybe leave it alone for now, and if the interest arises, well, what if you just let me know, would you let him know? And then we'll take a stab at bringing some options back to you.
I'd like, that wasn't what I heard.
Okay.
Now, I mean, I thought there was an interest in at least you exploring it
I'll explore.
and coming back. Yeah. So, you know, don't just leave it alone. Take a look at it, at what can be done.
Would it be of interest to the board to go ahead and ask you to work on what Mr. Mims said about having an X number of important topics and not everything under the sun, which is even good stuff. There may be some good stuff that, you know, you gotta prioritize and whatever. It's tough, but I think if you take a shot at what Mr. Mims has proposed, that may be one way that we could at least start dealing with some.
Well, I think also the more information we can prep ourselves for ahead of time, that may help us be able to have our questions answered, or at least be prepared to come, instead of trying to think of questions during it, that we already have our questions ready to go. And maybe even submit those to you once we've kind of prepped ourselves for the meeting, saying, hey, these are some things I have concerns about that could be included in the presentation. Because I think sometimes we probably, what I find myself doing is I'm thinking about the questions I'm gonna ask, and then it could even already have been asked and I don't realize it.
Excellent. Yes, sir.
You know, Dr. Richardson said something. That used to be a part of our standard operating procedure. That when we put that information out beforehand on board docs, that if you had some problems with it or some questions with it, you would make it known to the secretary and the superintendent, and they would address those matters for you before the meeting. That's kind of part of our normal protocol.
This board has been pretty flexible, really. I mean, there were times when we had 2 meetings a month based on what was going on in the district.
We'll take all of this into account. I just wanted to bring it as we approach a new year. Just thought it was a good time to just get a feel from the board. We will do whatever you'd like here. So I'll get some things together. All right, the next piece we will share with you is a political activity memo that has sort of been shared at this point with all of our high schools. We did not want you to hear about this and not be aware of what our high school principals have received. Attorney Dixon.
Okay, let me start by just saying that this attachment is a memo that we have shared with all staff in the county. And if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, basically it advises our employees as to sort of the do's and don'ts around election time and how to share their points of view about candidates or political topics. Basically the limits and extent to which their First Amendment rights can be exercised while being an employee in our schools. Also takes into account some of the fact that we have polling places at some of our schools. So just a really good guide for everyone to know about ahead of time. And it also touches on this issue of social media. And so when we sent this memo out, we also shared an important excerpt of our social media policy, 7335, which just kind of reminds people that even when they're engaging in social media on their personal accounts, that their standing as an educator also matters, and that they need to be mindful of that when they're communicating their points of view and sharing things online. So again, just provide it as a resource for our people, kind of help them find their way. And of course, we let them know that we're happy to, talk about any specific situations or answer any questions they might have too. And I'm very thankful for Eva and her team for taking, there was an original release that came out from a state organization, and she took it and deciphered it and made sure that it was in line with our own policies, and that it was in a friendly, easy-to-read memo. So I thank her for that.
I don't think so. It's just intended to serve as a reference. There's some questions that we get every year around this time about campaign signs and can so-and-so wear such and such a shirt and that sort of thing. So we're just trying to put some of the basics in writing.
We thought you gentlemen would find this helpful, especially as you talk with people. It is political season, and we get all kinds of requests, but this is the guidance by which we thought that was nice. The final retreat piece of just little hot topics, things to share, will be our Granville Ed Foundation update. And I'm going to ask Dr. Houlihan to share with us.
The Ed Foundation, as you know, has proposed some changes in terms of beginning to and be involved with charter schools and any other kind of organizations related to education. And that has raised some real questions among us. One of the questions is, when the original benefactor gave $1 million to the Ed Foundation, there were some very clear stipulations. Understand that after 5 years, those stipulations are no longer effective. So basically the foundation can use that money basically anywhere they want to. So that was one thing that there was an interest in knowing. Second, I got a phone call from a former president of the organization who was very concerned that the board did not really understand what was being proposed. And basically he said that they are opening the Ed Foundation up in some ways not just for charters, but for other organizations like the Boys and Girls Club. And he gave the example of the Duke Endowment giving a grant to the Methodist Church to be used to tutor kids and provide support for those kids after the school day. Those funds may be administered through the Ed Foundation, they may not, but the point is the idea of collecting additional money to serve things like the Boys and Girls Club. The second thing that I was told is that under no circumstances would the public schools receive anything less than we've gotten in the past. For example, we got, I believe, 19 teacher whatever grants last year, and the guarantee is that those 19 would continue to be offered as they have in the past, and that new funding or other kinds of funding would be used for charters. Now that is what I understood. That may not be completely accurate, but I think it's pretty accurate. They did, the point is that they wanted to make sure that we understood that they were not going to take anything away from what has currently been funded by the school, by the foundation to the schools, that anything given to any other organization will be above and beyond what they've done in the past. So the bottom line is, I think there's a real feeling that there perhaps has been some misunderstanding, and that their support for us is not going to change in any way, shape, or form, but that they will be involved in other organizations, education organizations, as I said today. We will have a board member or an administrator or someone who will have a vote. We will have that voting member as we've had in the past. We will be allowed anybody who wants to go from the school system, any board member or administrator who wants to attend one or more of those meetings will be welcome. So I feel a lot better than I did when we first got the information. And so we feel like we wanted to share that with you. Add anything you want to, Dr. McLean?
No, I believe you covered it. You did. It was succinct. It was wrapped around. You know, just broadening their base, and that they can do that because after 5 years, they really could modify the way they funded things. So I think it was good news for us. And Mr. Udy is our representative, if I'm not mistaken. We spoke at the last meeting, and that's going to remain, so I'll just make that formal, if that is all right.
Going to continue?
That Mr. Udy is going to continue. We talked about that a little at the last meeting, and I don't know if anyone's heart has changed, but Mr. Udy has been our representative, and we do get to sit at the table at those meetings. Is that okay?
Yeah, just, I may not be able to make all of them, but I've made all the functions they've had, or fundraisers.
Well, you know, if you can't make, if you'll let us know, one of the things I could do is to reach out to everyone and say, this happens to be one of those meetings Mr. Udy can't make. Could we get someone to attend in his stead? Typically, Dr. Myrick and Dr. Winborn or myself will sit in those meetings as well.
Okay, that's the update.
Wonderful. Well, that concludes the retreat portion where we were just sharing lots of different information. Do we need a 5-minute break before we go into the work session, or do you think everyone is ready to move right on into this piece? We're going to do a little remodeling at the front if we can.
All right, let's take 5 minutes.
May we do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you.